Hey, what's up, comrades? Hope everyone's doing great. We're here to follow up Dragon Quest III with its sequel, Dragon Quest I. That's right. If you didn't watch that video or forgot, Dragon Quest I is kind of like the ultimate original grandfather of them all Japanese role-playing games. And I say that not because it was the first role-playing game even put out in Japan, right? But it's the first one that kind of set up the design that is when you think of a Japanese role-playing game from like the 80s onward till today, especially like a pixelated one or like all these games that are making like pixelated remakes or whatever. It's Dragon Quest was like the granddaddy of them all. Like they all kind of cribbed off its style. So I played this game. I actually watched my dad play through it when I was younger. Like play through the whole thing, and even called like the Nintendo hotline at some point to figure out where like the Sword of Erdrick was, which was like a trip to get to. I'm not gonna lie, and this is not. It's the same, but it's just so excellent. And so this remake, it's fine, which makes it sound bad. I have played the original and like the remake on the Super Nintendo and the remake on the Game Boy. This is probably like the 12th time I've played Dragon Quest 1. I love this game. I think the simplicity and just like what it did with what it got, and just kind of like the story it tells, the very simple story it tells and everything is superb. And so my major complaint with the redo or the remake or whatever is that it spends so much time like adding all this kind of like unnecessary story and having you do all this kind of like unnecessary stuff to kind of fill out the plot or to tie it back to Dragon Quest 3, right? Because Dragon Quest 1, there was no like Dragon Quest 3 when Dragon Quest 1. This was not like an overarching like idea that these guys had where they're like, we're gonna do this whole thing. It's like they made the first game and it was super successful, and it's like, I guess we better pump out a second one, and that was successful. And at that point they're like, oh hey, you know what, maybe we can't really take this thing any further necessarily because we're gonna just be retreading some ground, so how about we take it in the past and be like, surprise at the end. All right, so that's fun. So you play this game, you walk around, you talk to people, you kind of get quests sometimes. Even in the remake, it's pretty basic. You do have like a quest, and you can turn on or off the quest marker to kind of like figure out where you need to go. Which I just keep on because, again, with this, it's like, I know I'm not playing the original game, so like I know what I would do because I've done it like so many times, like without even looking at a guide. I could get to like everything, find every hidden item, all the weapons and armor and stuff. But this like mixes it up so much that, and the order too. Like I was headed like in one direction doing something, and I get there and it's like there's no one here. Like why can't I do anything? And so then it's like, all right, where does this game actually want me to go? So you flip it on, you're like, oh, it wants me to go to the Shrine of Rain first. Okay, I guess I'll mosey on over there. And then there's like, cool, man, give me the staff. And it's like, no, you have to do this 15 other things first. And I was like, what are you doing, game? And it like adds like a fairy town and a dwarf town, like a whole lot of stuff. It really brings Rubicin card as well as being important, and like our old friends, the fairies from Dragon Quest 3 are around, and the Tsundere fairy that was in love with Ortega is like around. I mean, it's a lot of like ties back to other things as well. So there's actually a lot more story to talk about. So instead of this being like a 5-minute video where it's like, okay, so the game starts, you go rescue the princess, you gather up some things, and then you go kill the Dragon Lord at the end. Right? Which is essentially the basic story of the first game. This is like all sorts of like other things you go and do and meander about and like engage in. And like again, it was fun. It's always fun to play these like, I like JRPGs, and the more simple the better. And this is pretty simple, so I like that. What else does it add? So we get rid of like the personality system from the third game. That's gone. You have no companion, so it's just you, and so you can do everything. Like the main character can cast like every spell, healing and otherwise. He has every like ability. Not every. He doesn't have like certain thief abilities or monster abilities, but like we're just talking about like wizard spells, pilgrim spells, or priest spells, and then a bunch of just like grab bag of like hero abilities and spells as well, like all like Giga slice and then you can find scrolls, and the scrolls will give you extra stuff. So like you want like a better version of crack, or you want meditation or whatever, which meditation's the bomb. You gotta like hunt around for it, and you find scrolls and you use the scrolls and you get those abilities. We still got seeds. The money is like falling in your lap, essentially. So you can run out if you're always trying to upgrade, but like generally with role-playing games, if I don't get like a decent boost, and a decent boost can be different. Like in these games, it tends to be like, I gotta be getting over 5 bonus things to the attack or defense or whatever. Otherwise, it's really not worth spending that much money on, unless it's like very little money, but it tends to be a lot. Because then you'll just like, if you don't spend that money, then you get to like the next town, there'll be something that does give you that, and it costs like slightly more. So you save yourself like a ton of cash, because when you try to sell stuff in these games, you get like 1/10 of like the value. So it's like, it saves you from grinding, which is like the key. And honestly, with this remaster, there's like no grinding involved. And I just played on like the easy mode, which you cannot die. So like I stumbled into one guy, which was like this intense boss that just like murdered me like immediately, and I couldn't die, and I couldn't change off that mode. So I just kind of like left it on auto battle essentially, and eventually I just like picked away at his life until he died, and I was like, that was kind of embarrassing on my end. I'm not gonna lie, but I got the best armor in the game from it, so cool. I was really expecting to go in there and just like get murked. Because I'd forgotten I actually left it on the easy mode. But yeah, so there you go. All right. So the game starts off. We pick up a few generations later from the last game. We get the light spirit again. Like we hear the voice just like Erdrick did, our ancestor. It tells us darkness has arrived in the land. We're just like chilling in the woods. We then, and it tells us to make it for Tantagel. So we head over in that direction because we are the scion of Erdrick, and so we can help, and that the fate of the world rests with us. So we rush off, and then we switch over to some soldiers that are fighting a bunch of monsters, and they're getting a little bit overwhelmed, and they're talking about how like they're in trouble, and then we just like roll in there and kill the shit out of them, which is pretty badass. The captain thanks us, and we talk about how we're a descendant of Erdrick, and this cunty lady. And I say that because she's a total cunt the entire game almost, is like, whatever, I don't believe you. And you're like, okay, no one asked you. Clearly the captain believes me, so how about you shut the fuck up. And he even is like, hold up, wait a minute, this mother effer just like killed all these monsters that like the 3 of us were having a hard time with, so we're gonna go ahead and escort him over to Tantagel. And then we get this like cool shot of like, it's like a hand-drawn like on a scroll looking thing, where there's an island in the middle of a lake, and that's the home of the Dragon Lord. And then literally this dumb bitch like questions us again, and we're like, God, like what is your problem, man? But then we arrive, and the captain is like, I don't care if you're a descendant of Erdrick or not, you're a true hero who saved our lives, so I'm going to go tell the king that you're here, and then you can talk to him about it. And then she gets mad again about it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, women are like, how about you go get us a sandwich and stay out of the guard duty, you crazy dumb broad. Anyway. We then get escorted to the throne room to the king, Lorik, who is like, it's been like 16 generations or something? I don't know. Someone said the 16th, I thought at some point. I wrote it in my notes. So I was like, damn, that's a long time. And he's super excited. So we talk about if we have any proof that we have to our claim that we might be a descendant. And we're like, nope, we have no claim. Just a voice in our head that told us we were descendants of Erdrick. And he's like, well, tell us more. So we tell him about this dream and the voice. And he tells us that, according to the record, the royal record, Erdrick had the same thing. There was like a voice, and they had dreams and stuff. And the counselor's like, no, we shan't tell a stranger about all these secrets, the secrets of the crown and stuff. And the king's like, YOLO, we need some help. He then sends us to the cave of Erdrick, which is supposedly where he was buried. And when we get there, it'll give us some proof of our lineage or whatever. A guard brings us a reward for saving the other guards, which is just some money and stuff. And so then we just like meander about, steal a bunch of stuff from people's homes, and grind. I usually grind up to level 5. Even this game is like, even if you're playing on like the harder difficulties, I can't imagine it being that hard. Like I literally killed one guy, and it's like you gained a level, and I was like, wow. And like the original Dragon Quest, you gotta killing slimes for like 5 minutes at least before you gain 1 level. It's like, bro, this is like really shaving down the grind. Like, why even have it at this point? But we grind out a bit, then we head to, or I think they call it Erdrick's Hollow, where his grave is, and there we find some would-be heroes. There's like would-be hero, failed magician, like sad priest, and like and like lackadaisical monk or something. They all have like kind of funny names. And we overhear them talking about trying to find some sort of token at the bottom of the grave, which is, this token is what you find in the first game. and I can't remember what it does. It does something. I mean, the game, you start, and when you play the original Dragon Quest, you just start in the throne room with the king, and he's like, all right, descendant of Erdrick, go out and save the world. And you're like, got it. And he's like, the princess got kidnapped by a dragon. Try to figure that out while you're out there as well. And you're like, cool, sounds good. So this, you get a whole lot more like stuff going on. Anyway, so we wander up on them, they talk some trash, and then they like skirt off. And then we wander around this cavern and we can like find them being all scared and confused and lost and stuff. But eventually we make it all the way down to the bottom, and there's a note from Erdrick. It says that we must gather the objects to get to the castle of the Dragon Lord, and they are all held, each one is held by like great sages. And then before we can finish like the poem or whatever, we're interrupted by this would-be group of heroes. They read the inscription, and it talks about having, like, you need courage and all this stuff, and they're like, well, we don't have courage, so I guess we're screwed. And then they apologize to us for being underhanded, and I was like, I don't remember that happening, but okay. And they're just desperate to get revenge because the Dragon Lord destroyed their village. And that's another thing that was added to this game. There's a whole bunch of like just random destroyed villages where you can wander in there and like get some stuff, and they're important for like the one side quest that helps you find the helmet of Erdrick, which is also the helmet of Ortega, which is fun that's there. But I don't think there's really any other like side quest per se. Like you don't need to get the armor or the sword of Erdrick either, or the shield. So I guess those could all be considered like side quests. You gotta go like track them down on your own. They're not like important for like beating the game. They're important for beating the game as in like they are super overpowered, and like the bosses in this game like don't mess around. Like the difficulty, even like the easy difficulty, is like pretty tough, especially the bosses. You gotta like really be on your toes to get through. I mean, if you're playing easy difficulty, you can just like close your eyes and keep hitting the X button or A button on this like Switch emulated version of the game that I played. But normally you gotta be buffing and healing and like sneaking attacks in. Like I remember the first time I beat this game, man, it was like heal, attack, heal, attack, heal, attack, and just watching my MP drop, and be like, oh man, I'm gonna die. This is awful. And then like barely making it through. Anyway, so these heroes decide they're gonna stop being heroes and they're just gonna give up and go home. And we're like, good, you should give up. And we read the rest of the transcription after they leave, and it talks about the King of Tantagel having the Sphere of Light at some point. So after we do that, I head back to the king with the proof that I don't have. Like I said, some of my previous experience with Dragon Quest 1 kind of threw me for a loop in this game. So anyway, he says nothing to us, so we're like, all right, let's go to the next closest town, Gallenholm. Gallenholm is the home of Gallen. It used to be, it's like a thriving city with like a dock and everything. Oh yeah, there's no boats in this game. The boat showed up first in Dragon Quest 2, so we'll get some boat action in the next game. But, so we go to Gallenholm. There's a dock here. We can't get to it until we get some keys. That's right. The Thief Key, Ultimate Key, and Magic Key are back. We start with none of them, and we gotta track them down. Now, in the original game, there was only Magic Keys, and you had to buy them from a shop in like a later end of town, and then you can only carry like 10 of them, and you use them to open like every door in the game. And so you sometimes had to trudge like back and forth to get these keys, which was super annoying. Anyway, but Gallenholm is the place where we got the Lear. It's where the Bard was from in like the other game. It used to be just like a little farmstead or whatever. So we find out here that the princess was kidnapped. She was spirited off in the east by some fiends. We then head south from here and we find some inn, and this is a new addition to the game. Just sitting between like, so the way the world is set up, it's not like, it's set up pretty much exactly like Alfgard was, and Alfgard's the name of the world, was set up in Dragon Quest 3. So you have like Tantagel, which is kind of like the kingdom of the whole continent essentially, and then you have a town up to the left, you have a town up to the right, a town down to the right, a town straight south, and then a town to like the southwest, which is destroyed now, but it was in Dragon Quest 3. And then this, so that's like the original game, and this game has that as well, but this game adds a bunch of like other random towns that are just like out and about and that are also destroyed. And then periodically you find just like inns out and about. Again, it's like the game is like really doesn't want you to like fail at any stretch. Like the game, you failing at your quest in this game, which already, even in the original game, if you died, you just went back to the priest and got like, you lost half your gold, so like YOLO, right? And all these games include banks now, which I don't think banks first showed up until at least Dragon Quest 3, and I think there was just the one bank at the guild house in the main capital area. So yeah, I think that's right. Anyway, so let's see. Yeah, so we find an inn. There, a man mentions that there's a bunch of fairies living in the forest to the south. So we head south, and we eventually find a poisonous swamp, which has a nameless ruins next to it. And this is one of those nameless ruins that we talked about. There's nothing here, just an old woman who talks about dying. She's like, I wish I was dead. And you're like, sad. There's a cave nearby these ruins. That cave was there originally. It just had some stuff in there. It had a lot of cursed items, curse items. So curse items are these things. I don't think I even mentioned it in the third game. Like, I learned a valuable lesson about cursed items, like, probably the first or second time I played through the original Dragon Quest, where I was like, cursed items are no-go. There's, like, one good cursed item that I ever used. It was, like, the sword, or the spiked armor. And the armor is, like, super good. And when enemies attack you, you take damage. But also when you attack, you also take damage. Because it's, like, full of spikes and stuff. I'm trying to remember what it was called. I didn't use it in Dragon Quest 3, but I think it's actually in Dragon Quest 2 as well. Anyway, so they have like there's one that's like the Indomitable Mask, I think is what it's called, and it is like the best helmet in the game. But they're cursed. They always have like these side effects. Like I think you can't use magic or something, but the defense is like ridiculous. And if you like, you can. So one of the fun things about these older games is like, hey, I want to do like a challenge where I'm using some of these things, or like, you know, it's like a give and take. And like you can make some of these builds using these cursed items that are like broken but have like negative side effects, where you like, it's not that you get rid of the side effects, but it's like you become like invincible, or you're doing like so much damage. It's like, even if I miss like every other time, that one time I hit like kills even the last boss in like one hit. And it's like, okay, so who cares? Stuff like that, right? Or it's like, it gives you all this armor, but when you walk around, you like you're like always poisoned or something. But inside this cave, there's a bunch of chests. Like I said, there's some cursed items that we gather because we just like to gather things. And then when we're done with that, we head further south and we find this fairy village. And there's some locked chests there, but no fairies. There's also a cat that we can like flirt with. But apparently the fairies are hiding from us at this juncture. So around the fairy village, we're like finally hit a point where like the monsters are like really giving it to us. And I'm like, okay, I'm clearly not supposed to be here now, so we need to go gather up some more power or grind or something. So we're gonna head back up to like the Tantagel region and then head east instead. And so when we do that, we find a group of guards just like hanging out in one of these like secret spots that's just out and about on the map. Dragon Quest had a ton of these. This one only has like a few, and they're not as like beneficial because they don't hold monsters that you can like gather for like your monster tournament stuff. Anyway, they tell us about a village that's further east that was destroyed, and so we go to that village, and in that village we find Zalen. Zalen is a descendant of Galen, and so he's like a bard now, and he's like read all the works from Galen about the Erdrick and the hero, and he wants to live up to like his ancestors' legacy, kind of like us. So that's fun. But right now he's very uninspired. And so he wants to find the places where like Erdrick did stuff so that he can get inspiration from that. And he asks for our help. And this is where the side quest kicks in. So as you play through the game, you can go to several of these like nameless ruins or whatever. And eventually you can get to a point where you can get the helmet of Ortega. That's like right at the end of the game though. So it's not like you can just go do this side quest right now. Like Zalen will only appear in certain areas at certain times of the game, and so if you try to go there before, so you have to kind of like periodically just like wander to like these ruins. It's really kind of a mess. Like I asked Grok or Gemini or something to give me like the lowdown on it, because I was like, I'm not going to just like periodically pop into like every ruin I run across. Technically it should be the ruins you run into, but since this is like somewhat of an open world game, like you gotta kind of remember like, okay, I was supposed to go here first and then over here, and that relates to like where I should be going in this order after like certain stuff occurs, but like what? And honestly, by the time you get to like the very end of the game, I mean, you can just go to all the spots, which is essentially what I did. And it's not like you're gonna get ahead on the quest at all by doing any of this stuff. But even in some of these areas, he's kind of like hidden. So if you don't realize you're supposed to be looking for him, and he kind of gives you hints. There's a couple that are like super obvious. Like at one point, he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go here to like Cotillion," and so you just show up there and he's there. But other times it's like so confused. It's like, I don't know what he's talking. It's like, okay, go to like this ruins over here, and it's like, sure, sounds good, bro. All right. And then so we head further west, and then we find like another group of guards, and that the first group of guards mentioned, like another secret area. They tell us that we need to eventually head south to Remeldar, which is in like the southeast part of the continent, and that someone there is making like keys, or like claiming to have like the magic key, or making copies of the magic key that our ancestor gave him there. And it's like, oh yeah, that guy. Eventually we find a bridge that leads to the eastern portion of Alfheim, and then we get there, we find a guard that's like lying there dying, and he tells us that a dragon took the princess to the cave in the swamps south of Kol. And Kol is like the major city on the eastern continent. Then our friends, the captain and his two cronies, the dumb cunt and the nice guy, the dumb cunt immediately accuses us again. She's like, why are you attacking guards? And we're like, what? Why would you think I would attack guards, you dumb bitch? And then we tell her that we tell them about the story of how we rolled up and the dead guy was talking about the dragon and all this stuff. And they decide that they have to go look for the princess, and they wish that we don't tell anybody that the princess has been kidnapped. And this whole part is very confusing because we get something later, and it seems like this dumb bitch was actually there when the princess got kidnapped. And so, like, why did she act surprised when we're like telling her the story? Like, I was kind of didn't make sense. Anyway, we also see at this point that the captain is sick with something, and this has kind of come up during the game as you just talk to like random NPCs in towns. But there's like a darkness spreading over the land, and that's why like the poisonous swamps exist. And as like the darkness becomes stronger, the poisonous swamps become more prevalent, and then people tend to have been getting like sicker and sicker. Like I can't remember what they call it. It's like the swamp disorder or whatever. So there's that whole like shebang going on while all the rest of this like stuff's going on as well. And it seems like this guy might be suffering from something that something along those lines. So and then after they leave, we talk to another guard who's like over here hanging out, like getting the grave ready for this guy who just died. And he mentions that the guard captain was actually retired, and that he had to come back because, you know, desperate times call for desperate measures or whatever. They needed some extra help. So at that point, it's like, all right, where do you want me to go, game? You want me to go to Shrine of Rain? Let's go to Shrine of Rain. So we head up there, and in like the original game, it's just like, you walk in, there's a guy standing there, he gives you the staff of rain. In this, it's like that, it's the palace thingy with like Rubus at the top. So it's like this massive structure, and then the sage is just like chilling in like like the first floor and like the side room. I'm like a very put together room that he has set up for himself. This guy is super curmudgeonly, the scholar of the rain or whatever. He has no hope, as the fiends have the orb of light, which sphere of light. I thought the king had that, but I guess no. The fiends have it. Even though he does have the staff of rain, he then it starts raining outside, and so he invites us to stay because it's getting dark and stuff. During the night, the voice again speaks to us. She tells us that we must seek Rubus's aid, that the fairies know how to summon her, and that we must seek them out first. Also, something about Tantagel. In the morning, we tell the sage about our dreams. He tells us that this tower is the tower Rubus once gave her blessing to Erdrick, which we know because we played the previous game. Then he tells us that if we can get her blessing by summoning her, he will give us the Staff of Rain. With that, we then return to the king. We tell him everything that we've learned, which is literally just what we learned here. Like all that other stuff was like bullshit I just did on my own. The counselor doesn't believe us at all, and the king's like, does believe us, because fuck that counselor guy. Also, the counselor could be a hidden fiend. He ends up not being, but for a while there, I'm like, is he working for the bad guys? We then ask about the princess, because we learned all that stuff about her, and we learn that for a long time, the secret is that she's been able to hear the voice of Rubus. And then we get like a little recall of several months ago with Rubus warning the princess, whose name is Gwendolyn? Rubus tells her to take the Sphere of Light and seek a safe place because the fiends are after it. And in time, there will be a descendant of Erdrick, namely us, that will come to her. And at that point, she's supposed to give us and only us a message. So it was right after that went down that the fiends showed up. So she got like a little premonition about it. So she told the king about the message and everything else, and he told her to make sure he tells only us and don't tell anyone else, and then sent her to hide out at the Shrine of Rain. On the way there, at that bridge with the dead guy, I talked about the princess being kidnapped by a dragon or whatever. The fiends attacked her entourage, led by the Dragon Lord, and he claims, the Dragon Lord claims to be the King of Kings, the ruler of this world. He blasts the guards dead. He demands a sphere of light. She refuses to give it to him. He tries to blast her, but Rubus does some sort of like protective shield on her, and the Dragon Lord blasts more and more and more, and finally breaks through. He then takes the sphere, so he's got it. And then they banter back and forth about the hero saving her and stuff, and he says he may be able to convert her to his side just with some time, and that would be a boon for him since she can speak to Rubus. She refuses, and he thinks about destroying her at that juncture, but then something tells Dragon Lord that it might be a good idea to keep her prisoner so they can get more information from her later. The Fiend then takes the princess, leaving that bitch guard who was the only lady who survived. Oh, okay, maybe that's why she's a little bit of a cunt. I see. It's just absolutely, it's not for absolutely just no reason whatsoever. She still sucks. It's no excuse to act that way, but still. Back to the present, the king is conflicted as he wants his daughter back, but he has his kingly duties to like protect the realm. So like he doesn't want to send us to rescue the princess because we have like other things to do. But don't worry, we're definitely going to rescue the princess at some point in our journey. So, let's see, what's his daughter back? Okay, he then mentions 3 keys. The Thieves' Key exists in Gallenholm, so we should go there first, which we were over there first, all right. And so we zoom on over there, and then we find that, oh, now the game's triggered, and there's a merchant there trying to hawk the key for like $1 million, which is absurd. And he comes down to like 800,000 because he feels like a nice guy, and he's trying to sell it to the would-be heroes or whatever. He gets called a rogue and a swindler, whatever, and then he gets offended and heads off to the inn south of here that we've already been to, mentioning that when they have the money, you can find them there. So we talked to some people about town, about the guy, how he's kind of an asshole, but nevertheless, we need the key, so we follow him south. In the inn, we find him passed out in his room, and he tells us a naked man with a mask attacked him and stole a thief's key, and that he called himself Robin Hood. Yes, Robin Hood is back. He then fled southward. The innkeeper wants to call the guards from Tantagel, but we find out the swindler also like got this by like ill-gotten gains. So he's like, no, it's fine. And the innkeeper's like, whatever, I'm minding my own business. So we head to the cave that we plundered earlier with like the cursed items, and there it is, Robin Hood's here and his cronies, and we immediately start fighting them. We are way overtuned for this fight, and so we just beat the shit out of him. He then begs for his life and says he'll repent, and we allow it. So he claims that Edric was trained by Robin Hood's ancestor, also Robin Hood, and we're like, sure, okay, why not? He then hands over the key, the thief's key, but he does ask for a favor. He says one of his minions is down deeper in the cave, and if we could go help him, that would just be great. He also mentioned that there's fairies around here. So we learn at this juncture that the thief's key was owned by Robin Hood, and then the merchant like stole it, and so Robin Hood was just getting his stuff back. So that's fair. Deep down in the cave, we find the hoodlum being assaulted by some sort of sorcerer guy. We intervene as we do, and this fight is much harder than the Robin Hood, but not that much more. Upon defeating him, he mentions the princess and says without her, we'll never reach the Dragon Lord. And then the little hoodlum then heads back up to Robin Hood. We then hear some mysterious voices chit-chatting, and we follow them to find the fairies. Hey, it's 2 fairies. One of them freaks out when we show up, but the other one mentions that we beat the monster that was after them, so we can't be all bad. We then tell them about our quest, about summoning Rubus and all that stuff, and we need their help. And they decide to tell us about her. They then get into a discussion about helping us or not. They reveal that Rubus is off visiting another world, so that we need to find there's a way that we gotta like call to her and summon her back. And also the boss fairy, or as I call her, the queen of the fairies, she knows how to do it. But when the whole fairy group got attacked and everyone ran off in different directions, she like disappeared. So they need our help in finding her first. And then they also mentioned that there's dwarfs to the east that have been helping them on and off. So we go to help. Back up top, Robin Hood and his men are sleeping because the fairies put them to sleep apparently. We wake them up, and then he gives us the key, finally. So then we can head off east. It's time to hit up Cole. So we wander our way up there. On the way, we meet these dudes in the wood hanging out, talking about a hot springs and stuff, which is killer. Nice. Also, there's a blacksmith with an item shop sign that supposedly his ancestor had made the Sword of Erdrick, which is true. That was an old Japanese guy that we helped out with all his stuff. So that's cool. It's a nice reference back. In Cole, we find some people in the blacksmith shop who are talking about a coward who abandoned his post, and he was some sort of guard or something. Then we find this guy. Hey, it's the male guard that was with the captain. I guess he did. He abandoned his post. He was too much of a coward to go through with rescuing the princess or heading through the swamp cave or doing whatever thing he was doing. We found out that his wife and daughter live here as well, and they're super happy to have him back, but he kind of feels saddened that he's abandoned his duty and all this stuff. Feels really guilty about that. Also, Puff Puff. Yeah, boy! Oh, goodness. So there's a Puff Puff here. Also hot spring. And this is, in the old game, you got some like cryptic riddle about like go 5 steps south of like this or that. And that's how you find like the fairy flute, which you need to fight the golem that is guarding the way to Quintillion. None of that matters in this game. You need the fairy flute, but it's for the whole Rubrus summoning thing. So instead of being for like this cool thing where you have to use it against a boss to put him to sleep so that you can actually beat him, otherwise he just destroys you, it's just used as part of like a cutscene, which kind of lame. But also because I have the thing on where it's like, hey, show me like all the spots out in the world. So I'm not clicking X like 1,000 times a second, trying to just, as I walk around the outside world to try to find out where this stuff's at, because a lot of these like hidden spots are just like in a forest or in the plain. There's like no indication, there's no rocks, nothing looks different. Like the hidden spots all look like they have something there. But the stuff where you can just like click on like a twinkling thing in the open world is like, if you don't turn that on, good luck. And so I'm on town, it's just like, hey, what's twinkling down here? It's like, oh, it's a fairy flute. Wah, lame. Anyway, so let's head down. Okay, so we're gonna head down to the cave. So we go to the cave where the princess is at. In the cavern, we see the captain. He's talking to his to this bitch about heading to Rumadil to rest and to plan for the next steps, because he's not feeling super great and stuff. And she's like, no, we have to go right now. We have to kill that fiend, because she's got a lot of guilt about being a piece of shit. And then, pushing that off on other people like me and her dad. The captain's her dad. We find that out later, but I guess spoiler alert. Anyway. And then a fiend shows up and is supposed to kill both of them. When we show up, kill it, save them. She's again ungrateful. And then I think about how the coward is 1,000 times better than this dumb bitch. Anyway, so we followed them to Rumeldul, since we need the key from there anyway to help us save the princess, because now that we have the Thief's key, we can open up a whole bunch of random doors and get some like trinkets and stuff and some random chests as well. But to get to the cavern, like the cave that leads to the princess, we need the magic key to get to that actual cavern where we can actually rescue her. So onward to the next ridiculous quest of like meandering about forever. Let's see. Then we find them in Rumeldul, and he passes out, so we carry him over to the inn. This is where she's like, "Father," and we're like, "What?" So not only did she fail at saving the princess, but her father, the captain, had to return from retirement because she was such a failure. Nice. So much guilt. Anyway, over there, the local priest is like, wow, this guy's really sick. The magic I have cannot cure him. But, sometimes wizards have different kinds of healing magic. And in my head, I'm like, since when? What is what has this ever been a fucking thing, game? Oh, well, whatever. So we're like, okay, let's go check on that. So there is a wizard in town, and I know how to get there because I've played this game like 1,000 times. But the guy who sells the keys, normally in Rumeldul, it's pretty interesting. So this game came out. This is like an original Japanese role-playing game, right? Like loosely based on like Ultima and Might and Magic and all those games and stuff. Wizardry is a big one. It was super popular in Japan. But so you walk into a town, and when you leave the town, it leaves the map and you go to like the world map. So in the original game, you had to like hug the outside of the town so you could like skirt around, and that was the only way to get to the guy who sold you magic keys. So it's very, very sneaky. Obviously, if you're walking around town, you're going to see this building you can't get into, and it's going to give you a hint. So no one had to be like, oh, hey, hug the outside of the thing. Here, it's just like a part of the map, and there's like a road that leads to it. Kind of lame. There is somebody who mentions like, oh, there's a creepy old wizard or something who's up there. So we head in there. And we're like, hey, we need a magic key, so we're going to go to the princess. And he's like, I'm too busy. All the magic keys I make break. I think I finally found a solution. I need an assistant. I had this dwarf assisting me, but he took off. And so I can't do it now. And like, dwarf son, he's like, yeah, they live in a nearby cave over there. We're like, all right, convenient. So he agrees to go check on the captain to see if any of his healing magic as a wizard can do anything to help, if we agree to go get the dwarf. And so we're like, done deal. The Dwarven Cave's just a little bit further south of here, so we get there, we find some more random stuff. They are slightly more friendly than the fairies. The fairies were like really sketch. In fact, one of the fairies just kept running away. These guys are more just kind of like uninterested or whatever. We get to the very bottom to the Dwarven home like town, which is the bottom of this cave, and there we find the craftsman who can help with the key. Unfortunately, he's got the same sickness as the captain, the swamp miasma thingy or whatever, so he's just laying there. So he talks to us about how the fairy leader has a potion that can cure anything, but that the dwarfs don't have the ability to get all the way across the entire continent to get to their village because of all the fiends and stuff. So we're like, all right, we'll go. And it's easy for us because we just teleport immediately. So once we get there, the voice tells us to leave. Then our old friend that we rescued sees that it is us and is like, oh, hey, what's up? So then we get introduced to all the fairies. So we show up again. The village of the fairies is like kind of empty, and we get like, go away, stay out of here. And then someone's like, hey, wait a second, it's our homie. And it's like, oh my gosh. And they're like, hey, what's up, homie? Hey, you got to meet the overseer. The overseer's in charge while the fairy queen is like out doing stuff. She's a tsundere, by the way. So it's a lot of baka and like, oh, you're stupid. Thanks for saving my friends. That's really nice. Stupid. I love her. She tells us she knows the recipe for the sun-up potion that helps with that's the potion that can cure like anything, help with the miasma, except she doesn't know what the last two ingredients are. Only the fairy queen knows those are. So we are out of luck. Wah, wah, wah. Again, like when the Shrine of Rain, it's like, oh, but it's getting dark here. You might as well just stay for the night so that we can have more dreams here before we leave. So during the night, we have like a dream or premonition or whatever of Gwendolyn. She's being mentally assaulted by this evil presence, like this evil cloud or whatever, that has her captured. And the fiends are trying to get the information that Rubus was going to give her, or that Rubus gave to her to give to us. At first, they try to like beat it out of her, and she's like resists, and then they try to trick her by having like her dead mom show up and ask for the thing, and then her dad or her mom and dad, and it gets kind of creepy, like summon a whole bunch of them. Then we get back to the hero, and we hear the voice again, and it tells us that we must hurry because her hope fades, and if her hope loses out, then the whole world is in trouble, and that we have to get the magic key. And then the voice in our head tells us the last two ingredients. And so we wake up in the morning, and we go talk to the overseer, who's like, what do you want, Baka? I love her so much. She's the best. Okay, so she agrees to try to make up the sun-up potion if we can get her the ingredients that we had a dream about. But there's like a flower grove far south of the fairies, like in the bottom, the southernmost western part of the continent. And so we head over there. There's like some poisonous swamps and stuff we got to look out for. And on the way, we find a ruined city of Damdara. This is the one that used to be a major city that was destroyed, and it's full of poisonous swamps. And this is where I find that big guy that I mentioned way earlier, that like I should not have fought this guy at this juncture because he killed the crap out of me. And I was like, oh, this is terrible. But because I had like the Drakey mode on, like the easy mode, I could not die. So then I just like plunked at him with doing like very little damage for like quite some time, like 10-15 minutes before he died. And I was like, oh well, I guess that's how things are going to be here. And then right behind him I found the armor of Erdrick, which is the best armor in the game and makes you immune to poisonous swamps and other things, which is dope. Let's see. Oh yeah, and I gained like 5 levels after this fight. Excellent. So further south from that, we find the magnificent Monarch's Palace. This is the mini metal king. So we turn in our like limited amount of medals that we found though, and we get this like sick ass boomerang that I used for like quite some time. Because boomerangs are dope. Let's see. I want to go this way. Close to his palace, we find the flower grove with the items we need. After harvesting them, we see something else. It looks like some sort of rotting fruit, which bleeds out with the nature of life. We gather and get 2 seeds from that as well. Back over at the fairies, they're being attacked by fiends. The overseer tries some magic, but that just pisses them off. So we rush in, as we do, and save them right before the monsters can do anything sketchy. After thanking us, we hand over the flowers to them, and then we ask for 2 servings for the captain and the dwarf. 2 of the fairies leave for the work while we stand awkwardly with our tsundere girlfriend. She eventually thanks us for noticing the seeds because they're super important. Baka. She talks about how they have to be grown in special occasions under special circumstances. And we hand them over to her. And then and we literally, she's like, what? She's like, oh yeah, you selfish human. You idiot. And then we're like, oh, here, you can have the seeds. And she's like, thanks, I guess. Baka. That's so good. Then the other fairies show up and like, we got the sun-up syrup, hooray! So we head out to the overseer, and the overseer is like, hey moron, if you want, you can always come back and hang out again. Not that I care. She definitely wants us to fuck her. Anyway, we zoom off to the captain in room a little first. The cunty soldier lady is being sad on the bridge, and we take the cure to her father, and he gets better almost immediately. His daughter then runs off to be sad. She was a coward and that she lost hope and all this stuff. And then we approach, and she finally apologizes to us for being like a super cunt this whole time, which is nice, I guess. We tell her that we had a dream about the princess being captured and that she's in a cave. And then she says that she found the princess's necklace and when she got captured. So she hands it to us, and when we touch it, we hear the princess's voice, and she's begging for us to come rescue her. And she's really struggling to like hold it together. The soldier lady then gives us a necklace and begs us to return to rescue the princess. Next, we got to go to the dwarves. So he wakes up immediately and goes, and he's like, "Oh, hey, you're the warlock of locks or whatever." I think his name, he calls himself the Warlock of Doorlocks. Yep, that's it. The Warlock of Doorlocks, some stupid pun, to make the magic key. So we head over to the Warlock's place. We find the tomb working on the magic key. They complete it, and the Warlock hands it over to us, helping us accomplish this dream of finally making this magic key a permanent one. And then he asks for our silence, because they're going to make a bunch more magic keys, and they're going to sell them to people. And they're going to pretend like there's no possible way to make a permanent one. Genius. Capitalism at its finest. And that way they can use these less durable keys to fund more research. Yay! So now it's time for us to reach the princess. But first, we got to check in with the fairies. They are conducting some sort of experiment that they asked us to come back for. And so we walk in on that, and we see that they use the seeds that we got them to make a soul sigil. There are 5 sigils, and they all hold an essence of life. There's like soul, sun, moon, stars. Sun, moon, stars, soul, nature, I think, is the 5th one. And they mentioned that we will have to use the sigils to summon Rubus. So we got to like find random bullshit throughout the world that we can use. And we think we already have one. We found a crystal in some cave. I think it was Dwarf Cave. Oh shit, I wanted to go there. All right, time to turn around. And so we get 2 sigils. We get the water. No, this was the water sigil. So water must be the 5th one. It's sun. It was sun, moon, stars, water, soul. I guess that's kind of weird. Oh well. I think that's what it was. So, we hand that over. Should we learn about crafting? And they say like, oh, we can. If you bring us stuff, we can craft the sigils, but we can also craft other stuff too. And they cannot. There might be a way. I never found a way to have them craft anything else. They just craft the sigils for me, so good enough. And the sigils are nice because you just like have them in your possession, and they give you little perks. And the perks are like, when you use a spell, when you have less than like 50% life, you can press like a different button, and it will let you use like a more powerful version of that spell for the same cost, which is cool. And all the sigils do different stuff, but they all kind of like, they also like unlock better versions of spells that you have or abilities, which is it's fun. It's like a nice little thing. I didn't really pay much attention to it, but you know, it's there. Let's see. Oh, and also they give us more HP and stuff and more other stats. So now we can, oh yeah, and the water sigil makes items more effective, which is good. So now we go off to the princess. On our way through the cavern, we get an item, we get another one of these items that we can use, and eventually we get to a purple mist. Entering it, we get a hallucination. There we see the princess in her room in Tangential Castle. She's happy, and we're finally there to save her from her plight. Immediately it is obvious that this is a fake princess. As we are about to fall for the illusion, the real princess summons the power of Rubus to banish the fake princess. The real princess then shows up. She then thinks we're an illusion as well, even though she just saved us, which is interesting. She doesn't believe us when you try to talk to her about it. And when she summons the power of Rubus to show her the truth, we both reappear in the cavern. Now she sees that we're the real one, but then a large green dragon also appears, so we gotta fight that asshole. Which we fight and defeat it, and the princess is like very impressed and also turned on and horny, and she's hot, so we're also horny. So, but she's scared. And then we whip out the necklace that we got from the guard lady and be like, look, we're real and you're real, and we're gonna get married someday and have a bunch of kids, which is true. And so we hand it over, and she's super thankful about that. We then tell her that she tells us what the message that Rubus gave her, which is that the sacred egg has been tainted by darkness. So that egg from the end of Dragon Quest III is obviously the Dragon Lord now, and it got tainted by Hargon and all that stuff. She tells us the world will end unless a great hero can cure the land, and then a man in the south knows all we need to know to go there, and so we got to go there next. She then faints, and we have to carry her back to the castle, which is adorable because we pick her up and walk out of there, and then when there's battle, she like stands behind us. She also gets all hot and bothered when we pick her up. After we leave, we see this dark presence that was torturing and tormenting her before and doing hallucinations. So it was listening in, and it also heard the message, and it's also like around. So the dark presence then thinks to itself about how best to deal with us. So we carry our new girlfriend slash fiance slash future wife all the way back to Tangier. Once there, the guards announce that we have rescued the princess. Everyone in the kingdom is thrilled, and they all come out to celebrate. We head to the throne room there and talk to the princess and the king is so grateful and everything. And there's so much joy and blah, blah, blah. We have a discussion with the king and the counselor about what we do next now that we've rescued our future wife. And they talk about how there will never be peace in the kingdom until the Dragon Lord is dead. And the counselor and king then talk to us about what happened at Damdara, which we already know because we were there stealing armor. And also about Catalan, which is like the one place we have not been to yet. So Catalan, no one's heard anything from Catalan for a while. They got these mighty walls. So they're hoping that they're okay because their walls are so strong and powerful and whatnot. And, once the party is kind of going a little bit, we then head out to the balcony where we find our girlfriend, Gwendolyn. She gets, we talk to her about how she's in love with us and we're in love with her and all that cutesy stuff, and we hug, and she talks about she wants to go with us on her journey because she can't stand the thought of us being alone or being something happening to us without her being there to help and all this stuff. And we're like, no, baby, we got to go do this on our own. You're just some princess who's going to get in the way. That's obviously the right answer. Like, why would you come with us? That's a terrible idea. And she's like, fine, but take my necklace with you because I can communicate through my necklace to you, and so I'll always be close to your heart. And we're like, yeah, girl. So that's what we do. And in the original game, this was important, this necklace business, because that's how we use that to find coordinates to get the token of Edric, I think. There was something we needed to get. Maybe it was the shield in some swamps. But now we just use it because so she can be involved in the story. Like when we meet other people and stuff, she can chit chat or she can give us like a heads up, and it becomes almost immediately useful because after the party and everything and everyone says goodbye, we head south. So Rubus told us to go, or told the princess to send us like as far south as humanly possible or whatever. So that's where we go. And we head all the way to the south part of the continent, and there on the way there we run into the Weird Woods. And the Weird Woods is an interesting level because there's no way to, once you're inside, you can't get out, because any direction you go, you're gonna like mess up and you're gonna end up back at the beginning again. And at first I thought, oh, okay, I just have to memorize like the correct path and whatnot. But after a while, the princess is just like, oh, I sense frustration through the necklace and our connection to each other, so let me pray to Rubus to clear the fog out, and then you can find your way around. And then she does, and I was like, kind of lame. That your girlfriend has to bail you out because you can't figure out how to get through the Weird Woods. But what she does, it's a lot of we spend so much time here because you wander around a whole bunch, then she like bails you out, and then after she bails you out, now you can get access to all the different routes, which get you different treasures and stuff. So now you got to do treasures. So we go out and get all the treasures around here, and when we get to the end of the woods, we find the monsters who created we find like the cloudy monster that was in the cavern with Gwendolyn, and the one that was like giving her illusions and stuff. So we run into that guy. They try to do more illusions. Like we're in the Weird Woods, we're breaking through, and then all of a sudden like the captain and his bitchy daughter are there. And they're like, oh, hey, we're going to join you and help out because, blah, blah, blah. And then Gwendolyn's like, don't listen to them. They're an illusion. Oh, Rubus, dear God, please break this illusion. Ba-dam! And then it's like, yep, does it. And so we beat the shit out of these clouds. And once they die, then it's like, we're good to go because that got cleared up. But guess what else? Dun, dun, dun. They were also holding the fairy queen in the illusion. What? And so we rescued her by accident. But not really, because that was the message. Like Rubus knew that we had to come down here to find this person or find these monsters so that we could release her homie. And now that she's released and she's feeling great, her and Gwendolyn have like a chit chat about everything that's going on, because we're the Silent Pro tag, so they have to do all like the heavy lifting when it comes to like the story delivery. They discussed the message from Rubus, that it was really about rescuing her, because something about the message was like the heart of the earth or something. And so because she knows the way to communicate with Rubus and the steps and whatnot, she's the heart of the earth. I don't know, it was something like that. And then we find out that this is the fairy lady who's been like the voice in our head that's been telling us to do stuff. This is her. Oh, hey, there she is. Just like in the other game. And yep, it's exactly the same, because these fairies live for like thousands of years, I guess. So it's the lady who was the voice for great-great-great-grandpappy Erdrick / Comrade Bear the First, and now Comrade Bear the like 14th. She is also speaking to us, and that she let us hear. So that's good. It's fun. And then she faints, the fairy queen, and so our future wife tells us to carry her back to the fairies, and instead of picking her up and carrying her, we just like zone right back over there. And so we get there, and then everyone's like, oh my gosh, the boss is back, yay, hooray, they're all excited. And then they're worried because she's knocked out, and so they take her to rest. And then our tsundere girlfriend, the overseer fairy, is like, wow, you did what you said you were going to do. I'm shocked. That's good. Good job, Baka. Love it. Oh, she's the best. But then, instead of leaving, she asks us to wait for the queen so she can tell us more stuff once she's feeling better and awoken. So we just wander around and we chat with some of these other fairy chickies before getting word that the fairy leader, queen or whatever, she's awake. So we head over to her, and she tells us that we need to summon Rubus. And I'm like, thank you for stating the obvious, because like that's not what have I been doing this whole game? Stupid Staff of Rain. Anyway. And then she tells us what we need to do is that we need all 5 sigils, which I think we have 3 at this point. And then we need to get the fairy flute and the lute of ire. Oh, okay. So we're missing the lute of ire and like 2 sigils. So the next step is to do none of those things and just go to Cantillon. So we head out there. While we're there, we explore like the whole southern part of the continent, find a bit more stuff, some more secret stuff. And we find some more sigil stuff, and then we find the Wayfarer's Inn, and then we get to Cantillon, and just like in the original game, we fight a golem there, but this time we don't use the fairy flute to put it to sleep. I mean, maybe we could. No one said anything about it. I didn't even try, and it was unnecessary. He really wasn't that strong. So we beat that guy, and once defeated, we head inside, and we learn that the golem was built ages ago, which we got like a little clip at the end of Dragon Quest III about that. But that recently fiends came in, and they corrupted it and essentially lock everybody in the town. I don't know why not just destroy the town, but that's what they did. The fiends also got into a huge argument with this priest. Is a priest in the town, and this priest knows where the ultimate key is, which is something we need to continue on with the game. There's like a specific reason the monsters wanted it. I'm trying to remember. I think it was like guarding something important for them. I don't remember. Anyway. And so they also took him to the Weeping Isles, which is a new dungeon for this game that's up north, in like the northernmost part of like the southern part of the continent. So we explore the town, rob the place, and get moving on that. On my way up to the Weeping Isles, I discover that the bridge is broken that leads us there. What? Yes, more things for us to go do. It's like a freaking point-and-click adventure game. Lord. Okay, so who can fix bridges? The dwarfs probably can, so let's head over there. So we head over to the dwarfs. They're like, hey, thanks for making me feel better and helping our brother and all this stuff. And we're like, hey, there's a bridge I need to fix. And they're like, oh, we love fixing bridges. Let's go do that. And it's like, cool, is that going to take very long? And they're like, nope. And so we guard them as they wander all the way across from like the very other side of the whole continent in like the most roundabout human way possible, because they didn't just build like a simple bridge to connect the 2 southern parts, but whatever. And we lead them to Cantillon, and they're like, hey, we're here to fix the bridge. And then it's like 1 day later, bridge is fixed. They just needed to come here to get some timber and stuff. And it's like, cool. And everyone's like, holy cow, you fixed the whole bridge in like 5 minutes. And they're like, yeah, we did. We're the best. And I'm like, yeah, you are. Like, damn. So that's fun. Oh, let's see. Then while we're like resting, while the bridge is being fixed, we head over, we get like a vision of the Dragon Lord. He's on his throne. He's talking to himself about his birthright. He's trying to utilize the sphere of light, but it like rejects him because he's full of darkness and stuff. And he keeps trying to do it, and he's unable to do it. And then he gets all kind of mad and summons dark clouds. And then after the dwarfs are done, we're about to leave, and then this scholar guy heads over, and the scholar guy is like super best friends with the priest that got kidnapped, and he's like, "Oh, brothers, please save my friend. I'm really butthurt and sad about the whole situation, and I really hope that you can do something to help him because I'm sad." And I'm like, yeah, we got it. Don't worry. Let's see. What tells anything else? Oh, he does tell us that his son. So his wife died mysteriously, or she just died, and that his only son and him got into like a fight about stuff. And so his son went to Damdara, and we don't know if he died or not. Most likely he did, because Damdara got completely destroyed. So that's sad. So then the priest is like all alone, and like, that's important to know, because obviously the son's going to go up, because this game, despite being kind of silly with all this extra story nonsense, is actually like very well written, and like everything makes sense, and stuff's brought up that is immediately relevant, or that is relevant slightly later. So it's like you got to pay attention. So we head all the way up to the Weeping Isles now that we can get across the bridge. We find this area with a ton of metal slime, so we gain some levels there, and then we head inside the cave. Inside the cave, we eventually find the priest, and he's being tortured, and he resists. And so as we're moving through the cave, we keep getting like little shots of him being like tortured and stuff, and resisting, and then like the fiends taunting him, and then they bring his son in. Oh no, the son was alive. They purposely kept the son alive when they attacked Damdara, so that they could torture him in front of his father. Oh no, that's really sad. It's pretty fucked up. And so it's like, okay, we gotta hurry. So we head down. Let's see. Okay, and then we find out that the fiends want the ultimate key, and then he tells them that, let's see, the fiends like both times. Okay, so then finally he reveals where the ultimate key is to the fiends, and he's like, so he's like, "I will tell you what ultimate key is, but you have to spare my son." And they're like, yeah, for sure. And then he tells them, and they're like, "All right, time for both of you to die." And he's like, "You promised me." And they're like, "Yeah, but we're fucking fiends, man." Like, we're liars. So they blast the shit out of the priest, killing him, and then re-roll up as we do. We just like, whoa, ching, and we fight them, and then we beat the shit out of the minions. But then the boss guy, old Spiketail here, is like, "Oops, I'm noping out." So he like nopes out, and then the priest and his son say their goodbyes, and we escort the son back to Kentilin with his father's corpse, and we get this like very sad like funeral situation going on, and we attend the funeral per the son's request. And then the mayor guy and the son and the scholar all say like very nice words about the priest, and the son finally realizes that his father loved him most of all. Like the son like left and was mad because he thought the father loved the people more than he loved him, and that kind of made him like very upset that he would do anything for the people of like Cantilian, and so that's why he like ran off. But then he realizes that his father sacrificed his life for him, and that made him realize that like, oh no, my father actually really loved me. And then the scholar quotes, yeah. And so then the scholar says some poem, and the son recognizes it, and he repeats like the whole thing. And it's about the hero. It's about Edric, obviously, and something about a silver string and the west wind and the holy light of the hero. And they talk about how it was written by Galen, the bard from the first game. And it mentions that the sacred lyre is next to his bones. And so we learn from this that our next step is to go back to Galen home now that we have the magic key, and then we can go to the grave of Galen, and we can search around for that. So that's good. So that's what we're gonna do. Let's see. Oh, but before we go, it's getting dark, and obviously we can't travel at night. So we get invited to stay before we head out. So at this point, we get another vision of the Dragon Lord fighting with being frustrated about the Sphere of Light and fighting with it and stuff, and that it's not doing what he wants. And then we see his castle emitting darkness throughout the land, and then Rubus speaks to us about how his power is getting stronger and how Alfgard is about to be plunged into an even greater darkness. Then over at the ferries, we see that monsters are popping up in town and attacking everybody and stuff, and the Overseer gets hit by a Dracolich, and I'm super pissed because that's my Sundari girlfriend. And then even more monsters appear, and then Rubus tells us that the darkness is taking over the village and that we need to go help. So we zoom on over there, literally casting the spell zoom. And as we get there, the Overseer is back up and trying to hold off these like Dracoliches, and then Daydreamer tries to put the Dracolich to sleep. But then another one appears and almost gets her, except Arm Twister pushes her away. These are the names of the fairies, by the way. I haven't said it up to this point. Then we show up and beat all the fiends back. But after we kill all the fiends, there's a lot of people who are injured, people who are like dead. Like Arm Twister's dead, and Daydreamer's like super butthurt about that, as she should be. That was like her best friend. No. And then the queen thanks us for saving everybody. Overseer's injured, but she's going to survive, thank goodness. And then Daydreamer like completely breaks down about Arm Twister. So that's pretty sad. After that, we head over to the main house and talk with the queen. And she doesn't really tell us anything important, but we head over to Cole because it shows up on my map. As a place of interest, and I'm like, so I open the map and there's like Cole and there's Gallenholm, and I'm like, why is Cole showing up as a place of interest? So I head over there first, and then we find some fiends about to kill the wife and the daughter of the coward guard, and then he runs up and saves them, and then he almost gets gat, but then we show up because it's old Spiketail, that motherfucker, and so we go up and kill Spiketail, and he drops the ultimate key. This dumb fucker was just like hanging out, attacking villages, holding on to like this thing that he spent all this time and torture trying to get somebody. Like, that was kind of silly. I'm not gonna lie. But then this gives the coward guard, like, this is like his redemption arc. Even though he's kind of a coward and ran away from saving the princess, he was he showed up to save his like wife and daughter, and so he's still kind of ashamed he's a coward. But then his daughter and wife are like, no, you're my hero. Oh, you're the best. We love you, husband. And he's like, yeah, all right. And so we finally get the ultimate key. We take it back to Tantagil so we can get into their armory and steal other stuff. But most of all, we go because the Sage's son has just been hanging out there the whole game. And he's got the Sunstone, which is the thing we need with the Staff of Rain so that we can make the rainbow drops, just like in Dragon Quest III, so that we can get to the Dragon King's Isle. Yes! And he tells us that he used to be the chancellor, and before Edric left, like all the way back in the day, like we saw at the ending credits, before the ending credits in the other game, was that Erdrick talked to the counselor, and what he did is he gave the Sunstone to that counselor, and they've been passing it down ever since. And that his son, even though he's kind of an asshole, is not evil. He just doesn't know what's going on, I guess, or something. So we have that. And so finally this guy can rest knowing that the descendant of Erdrick's going to use the Sunstone to get to the rainbow drop and get what he needs. So he can rest. That's nice. So now we head off to Gallenholm to get the Lear. And as we enter, we find Robin Hood fighting some fiends. What a fucking stud. And he saves the village along with the fake heroes. So the fake heroes and Robin Hood and his hoodlums like teamed up to save Gallenholm. And they're going to go out and like keep fighting fiends while we continue to like work on getting to the Dragon Lord's castle and solving the problem. So that's cool. So we chat with all them for a bit. And then we head down to Galen's grave, and before we enter, this like creepy mage just shows up out of nowhere and tells us that no one has ever returned from the grave, and that never comes up again. So okay, so we get to the bottom and get to the Lear. There's absolutely no problems. Super easy dungeon, pretty straightforward. And when we get down there, before we grab the Lear, there's also a poem. We get like the real poem, which is different than the one the son read. And let's see. And then it talks more about how Edric was sad about leaving his homeland and that he missed his mom and stuff, which is like, oh, that is kind of sad. Poor mom. So now that we got everything we need, we take all this stuff back, along with the things we need to make the rest of the sigils. We go, we make all the sigils, we present them to the Fairy Queen, and she's like, I will go play the Lear at the Shrine of Rain, but I cannot do this alone. I need help from somebody else, because someone else has to play the fairy flute. So they got to play the flute and the Lear at the same time, where we have all the sigils going. Then that will bring Rubus back to Alfgard. Sweet. And so our Tsundere fairy girlfriend, Overseer, volunteers to come with us. Baka. And so we head over there. The Shrine Mage is gone from his little like hangout spot, so we ascend the tower and find him about to be killed by a fiend, which would be very unfortunate. So of course we do as we do, and we swoop in and save him. And then once that monster's dead, the fairies arrive and perform the ritual, which summons Rubus. Yes, she banishes some of the darkness and tells us that we must find the talisman of Erdrick, as well as the Staff of Rain and the Sunstone. And then the old man's finally like, oh, you brought Rubus back. Here's the Staff of Rain. I see you guys got the Sunstone. That's great. You just need the token or whatever, the amulet of Erdrick, and then you can go to like the greatest scholar, the rainbow scholar or whatever. So then the fairies come down and they're like, hey, we're all going to relocate here from the village because it's more secure, and this is like Rubus's headquarters, and this is where we used to be anyway, which is true. And we're going to protect it with her. She gave him like all extra abilities, like somebody can like speak with animals now or something. I don't remember. Anyway, we learned the talisman is in the southernmost part of Alfgard in that like swampy place where it was in the other game, but now there's like a dungeon there we got to go to. And if you remember from Dragon Quest 3, which I had forgotten until this point, this is where we found Overseer in the other game. And when she was in love with Ortega, and she actually tells us a little story about how he saved her, which is the story we got in Dragon Quest 3. So that's cool. Like, tied it back. That was fun. And because it's all, so she was in love with Ortega, but hated other humans, but we're all right too, for an idiot. Yes. Oh, man. And also they talk about Zalen, because he can help us find like the rest of the armor or something. But he's like out and about, so we can do that too. So, okay. We're gonna go do that. Let's see, Dragon Lord's Keep, no, the Scholar. Oh, no. Okay, so then I go down. Okay, I apologize. So after she calls us Baka and we leave again, we head down to that shrine. It's super easy to find. We go in there, we fight like a really simple boss, and then we get the talisman. And then we're like, cool, so now we can get the rainbow drop. So we go get the rainbow drop, and then now, after that we're like ready to go invade the Dragon Lord's castle. It's like, it's time to open up Gemini and find out where the rest of this fucking Erdrick's armor and sword are. And the sword, as I said, is in the castle, so I'm not too worried about that. But that's where I was like, why did I write down about Zalen? Oh yeah, because we have to trace. This is where we have to go through every like ruined city in the game and find Zalen and everyone in like a specific order so that we can get the helmet, and then the shield's just back in the fucking Weeping Isle, so we have to like, at least we can zoom, so we have to go zoom up there and then head downstairs, and we find it just like in a chest we couldn't open earlier because we needed the ultimate key. So we get that, and the sword, yeah, it's in Dragon Lord's Keep, so we'll get to there when we get there. Alright, so off to the Weeping Isles first. We just head down there, it's in a chest lying around that we needed the ultimate key for. Next, it's time to track Zalen for the helm. First step, head to the Nameless Ruins. He tells us about people who live there, and then we head over to Dam Dara. He talks about the auriculum that was found here, and we go to Cantillon, and this time he talks about how Galen and Edric met here, and how Galen inspired Edric to be a hero, whatever nonsense has been passed down throughout the generations, which is fun. It's like an interesting way to look at history, because it's true. A lot of stuff is just like made up bullcrap. Anyway, next we head over to Galen home, and we find Zalen on a beach. He talks about Robin Hood, and then he talks about the flower field far to the south. Once we get there, we find our tsundere girlfriend. We find out that she's the one who... Oh, this is where we find out about her and her love for Ortega and stuff, which is fun. And then we get the little flashback of that whole situation going on. She then tells us she did not know Edric well, but that we should talk to the queen at the Shrine of Rain. And there the queen mentions that the Overseer has already filled her in on what we're doing and our quest with Zalen and all that stuff. And so she's going to take us to the place that was close to Erdrick that he visited quite often. And she takes us back to the island where Dragon Quest 3, when we first came to this world, that's where it ended up. And he talks about how after Zoma was defeated, he came here often. He buried his father here, and eventually left his helmet here. And prayed for his mother constantly, who he would never see again, which is kind of sad. Over at the grave, like I said, there's Edric's helm, the queen, and so we get that, and that's the memory of Edric's helm. And then she takes us back to the Shrine of Rain. And finally, it's time to go get the Overlord. So we head over to the Overlook. We use the Rainbow Drop, creates the Rainbow Bridge again, like in Dragon Quest 3, and then we get a look into the Dragon Lord's throne room as we cross. He again is trying to corrupt the Sphere of Light. He falters and gets sassed by Rubus. She then mentions that the Rainbow Bridge has been reestablished at the castle, and we get a little clip to the ruined castle. And so it's right. First thing to do, find the sword. So we explore the castle. Eventually we find the sword. This thing's pretty deep. It's got a lot of rooms, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of poisonous stuff, which doesn't matter as long as we have the Erdrick's armor and all that. But the sword is just stuck in the ground, pretty much in the middle of the castle. We got to like all the way down and then all the way back up. And then finally, now let us go take part in the destruction of the Dragon Lord. So we go ahead and fight our way all the way down to the Dragon Lord, and once we get there, he's like, let's talk. And says he wants us to join him to rule beside him instead of fight him. So in the original game, this was also there. So you have a choice here. You can choose to join with the Dragon Lord, or you can choose not to join with the Dragon Lord. If you choose to join with the Dragon Lord in the original game, you get half the kingdom and rule in darkness, and that's the end of the game. So then you got to boot up your save, which is awful, because then you essentially, even if you went back and forth and saved, it's like you spent all that time coming all the way down to the bottom here to talk to the Dragon Lord, and then you got to like do that all again. Now with this new version, it like auto saves every 5 seconds, and there's like a teleportation thing right next to the Dragon Lord, and so the whole thing is like, who cares? And it's even more so who cares, because in this version, if you agree to join him, he like laughs and says, oh, I'm going to send you to the never-ending void. That is the half of the world that you will be in charge of, blah, blah, blah. So he's much more of like an asshole in this game. But then you just like wake up in Rimeldar. Yeah, Rem Yule Door. And you're like, and then the innkeeper's like, are you okay? You look like you're having a nightmare. And it's like, oh, okay, we're just gonna like hand wave away this whole situation. So then you can just like very easily teleport over to the castle and then teleport from the entrance to the thing and fight the guy. So it's a little terrible if you ask me. So we decide to fight this time, and so with the first phase of the fight is pretty easy, and then again, this kind of defined a lot of JRPG tropes, because this is like where it all began. And one of the tropes it defined here was that you beat the boss and then you got to beat him again in a different form, more powerful form. So as soon as you beat the Dragon Lord in his like silly human form, he turns into like an awesome looking dragon creature, and then we got to fight him again, and he's like 100 times harder with that. And thank goodness for Drakey mode or whatever. So we beat him again, and then he tries to use the Sphere of Light, but it's no good, and then we stab him in the heart and stab him against the throat, and he dies. And then the Sphere of Light comes to us, and like the whole place lights up, and we leave the castle. And then over at Tantagel, we run into Robin Hood, who almost got arrested again for being like an a-hole, which is pretty hilarious. We enter the castle, and we're welcomed as a true hero. Time to party. As the party commences, and we meet up with Gwendolyn on the roof again, we embrace. Rubus cock blocks us. And we talk about how the darkness is not truly gone from the world. The Dragon Lord will be reborn into light someday. And because it's a creature of light, like the dragon who gave us the Sphere of Light originally, that means that someone corrupted it. And that someone is that Hargan character that was mentioned at the end of Dragon Quest III, presumably. So our descendants will need to be prepared for the fight of darkness when it arrives. And then our future wife gets super excited about us putting a baby in her. And the scene fades to black. Heck yeah. Later on, the king summons us. He wants to give us the crown to the kingdom. And we speak about it. And we're like, and then this, it's like shockingly, the main character who's been like a silent protagonist this whole game and is the entire time in the original game, starts speaking, like has a voice actor and everything. And it was like, what? So anyway, the main character, we tell the king that if we're going to rule over a kingdom, we want to be at a kingdom that we establish ourselves, so that we don't want to take over his kingdom, that we want to kind of prove ourselves and do all this stuff. And then as we're heading out, our wife runs up to us, our baby's mama at this point. And it's like, I'm coming too. And we're like, of course, my lily princess queen. Let's do this. So we make googly guys at each other, and there's little hearts above our heads. And the king is like, dope, I get heirs. Fantastic. So we pick her up, and the credits roll. And then after the credits, we see this dark shape talking to its master about failing with the Dragon Lord thing, and how everything is still proceeding according to plan. And that will be continued in Dragon Quest II, which we will be discussing in 2 weeks. Go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and I will catch you guys then. But before I go, this game is dope. It's dope now. It was even doper in the original versions. Probably Super Nintendo version is my favorite because it adds a little... Was there a Super Nintendo version? There's at least a Game Boy Color version. I'm trying to remember. Maybe the Game Boy Color version's the one I'm thinking of. Anyway, one of the Super Nintendo... if there's that, or the Game Boy Color version is probably the best, because it streamlines some of the old janky stuff, like how to like open up a menu and hit stairs to go through stairs, and same thing with doors, without adding all this like extra bull crap about the story that is kind of unnecessary. But if you like more story, it's there. It's fine. But I kind of like the simplicity of the original, just kind of like nonsensical story. But yeah, anyway, I will catch you guys later. Bye.